Now I want to talk about the PvP build I'm using for Barbarian. First of all, I didn't come up with this build, I saw it on Crane Play's channel and he has a pretty good breakdown of the build on his channel. I think he shared one more build too, but I find this one more effective to help out your team. Make sure to check his channel, he is sharing pretty good Barbarian content. Well, let's check out the build. As always, let's start with the skills. First, we have Chained Spear with two different essences. The chest piece is basically the main affix of this build. This one creates that pull effect which is pretty annoying to play against. The other one just increases our damage by 19%. By the way, I will show every single legendary item in a second, so don't worry about it. Next, we have Cleave. Thanks to the essences we are using, it deals damage to the enemies we are pulling, which is good. And it works by itself. I mean, this build overall is pretty easy to manage and play, so if you are having trouble with fast-paced builds, you might want to try this. After that, we have the signature skill of Barbarians, Wrath of Berserker. After a long time for the offhand essence, we are not using Sundered Legacy. Instead, we have the one that increases our critical hit chance. Of course, we have a few other pieces to enhance this, but I will talk about them in the legendary item section. Lastly, we have Undying Rage. Undying Rage I think needs no explanation. It prevents you from dying for a while. For the primary attacks, we are using Lacerate and it plays an important role in this build, which I will explain in a minute. Now, let's move on to set items. Well, we are using 4 pieces of Vitu's Urge to increase the duration of the beneficial effects. Plus, from the 4 piece, we are getting a pretty good attack speed bonus, which is quite helpful. For the other 4 pieces, I have Mountebank to get those shields because we need to stay alive as long as possible. By the way, I tried this build with 6 pieces of Banquet of Eyes and 2 pieces of Vitu's Urge, and it worked that way as well. Now let's check out the legendary items. For the helmet, we are using Lasting Hate, which increases the duration of Wrath of Berserker by 39%. This is important because the version of Wrath of Berserker that we have has a pretty long cooldown, so this essence definitely helps. For the chest, we have Shackled Fate. Chained Spear now conjures a Spirit of the Ancients for 5 seconds that repeatedly casts Chained Spear, dealing damage to enemies while also slowing their movement speed by 35% and pulling them in. For the shoulders, we have Law of the Wild. Cleave deals 47.5% increased damage to slowed enemies. I am sure that you can see how this will work with the chest essence. That one slows the enemies and we deal more damage with Cleave thanks to this essence. For the pants, we have Buried Talons. Chained Spear also increases your damage by 19% for 3 seconds. For the first main hand, we are using Rending Bite. Lacerate now inflicts bleeding that deals damage over 3 seconds. And for the first offhand, we are using Falling Thunder. Wrath of Berserker also enrages you when you are near a bleeding enemy, increasing the damage you deal by 28.5%. As you can see, this works very well with the first main hand. For the second main hand, we have Borrowed Might. Cleave now grants you the power of the Ancients, periodically conjuring a Spirit of the Ancient to cleave through nearby enemies. Lastly, for the second offhand, we are using Broken Soul. Wrath of the Berserker now increases critical hit chance by 50% for 6 seconds, but no longer increases your attack speed. That's all you need to know about legendary items. And for the cursed properties, I'm using 4 pieces of Detested. And I have 4 legendary items with ancestral affixes. And I'm using the stun effect from it, which is pretty good. For the Paragon, I'm using Warden because of the shield and the extra damage reduction. I think it is way better than Gladiator for Barbarians. I will share a separate video about legendary gems, so I'm not getting into that right now. Basically, that's all you need to know. Don't forget, Barbarian is a frustrated class to play, and this build doesn't change that. With this setup, you are able to hit and interrupt enemies while you are under control effects. I think that's why I like it. Once again, thanks to Crane Plays for sharing it. I hope you guys enjoy it when you try it. Thanks for tuning in and take care.